The galaxy had known desperation before, but nothing like this. The Volari Dominion, once proud rulers of 7 star systems, had been reduced to fractured fleets and burning colonies. Their ancient enemies, the Kardak swarm, moved like a tide across the void, devouring worlds, silencing transmissions, leaving behind only husks of cities and echoes of screams. No alliance had dared to answer their cries. The Volari, in their final hour, broadcast one last SOS into the dark. Help us. To any who hear this. Our people are dying. They did not know who would respond. They did not care. All they wanted was survival. What they received was silence for 6 cycles. Then, on the 7th, a reply came. It was not the reply they expected. On the barren Volari colony of Rethuan 4, Governor Talan Vor stood on the cracked observation deck, trembling as the message repeated on the loudspeakers. The translator rendered the guttural language into Volari speech. This is the United States Space Corps. Transmission received. Reinforcements inbound. Hold position. Help is coming. Talan's frilled headcrest twitched with unease. Reinforcements? The Volari had begged for diplomats, mediators, negotiators, anything that might stall the swarm. But this transmission carried no tone of diplomacy. No softened language. No promises of peaceful resolution. The words were sharp, clipped, and cold. Reinforcements inbound. When the first human warship dropped out of FTL near Rethuan 4, the Volari civilians gathered in awe. The vessel was not elegant like Dominion craft, nor graceful like the glittering ships of the Kethri guilds. It was a beast of steel and scars, a leviathan with guns jutting out like the fangs of a predator. Its hull bore the name USSC Valiant. And when its dropships roared into the sky, no diplomats stepped onto Volari soil. Only warriors. The first human boots to touch the cracked landing pad belonged to Colonel Mark Hastings, a man of broad shoulders and steel-gray eyes that had seen too many wars. Beside him marched Captain Sarah Mitchell, rifle slung across her chest, scanning every shadow as though expecting death to leap from it. Behind them, 24 armored Marines spread out in disciplined formation. The Volari governor scuttled forward, desperate, wringing his hands. You have come. Blessed stars, we feared none would hear. You will negotiate with the swarm, yes? You will speak terms of truce? Colonel Hastings stopped, visor reflecting the alien's trembling form. No, he said flatly. We don't negotiate with locusts. The Volari stared, frills trembling. But the swarm is endless. You cannot fight them. We asked for peacekeepers. Captain Mitchell's voice cut like a knife. Then you asked the wrong species. That night, Rethuan 4 shook with thunder, not of storms, but of artillery fire. The humans had not come to parley. They had come to build kill zones, set up artillery batteries, and dig trenches. Volari citizens watched in shock as soldiers unloaded crates of weapons, drones, and mines. Within hours, the once quiet colony became a fortress. The aliens muttered among themselves in disbelief. Deathworlders, they whispered. The word carried weight across the galaxy. Humanity was young, but infamous. They came from a planet that killed its own children with storms, quakes, and beasts. Other species tiptoed carefully into war. Humans leapt headfirst into it. The Volari had not wanted warriors. Yet now, the night sky burned with the glow of human preparations. On the 3rd night, the swarm arrived. Thousands of living ships boiled out of hyperspace like hornets erupting from a hive. Black chitin, spiked hulls, and glowing maws filled the stars. The Volari civilians screamed. The governor collapsed in despair. The humans did not scream. They loaded their rifles. Colonel Hastings stood on the front wall of the colony, calm as stone. His voice carried through the comms to every Marine. They're coming for blood. Let's show them what happens when you knock on humanity's door. The swarm descended. The first wave hit like a tidal surge, beasts tearing across the ground, claws rending steel, wings blotting out the stars. Volari shrieked and fled, but the humans stood shoulder to shoulder, rifles spitting fire, turrets roaring, artillery lighting the night with thunderclaps. Captain Mitchell's squad held the southern barricade, mowing down beasts that vaulted the walls. Her voice was steady, calm, even as ichor splattered across her visor. Target priority, wings first. Ground units can't breach without air support, hold the line. Private Daniel Brooks screamed as a claw ripped through his shoulder, but Sergeant Ramirez dragged him back and fired point-blank into the creature's skull. Blood hissed like acid on the ground. And still the humans held. In the command center, Governor Vor watched through trembling claws. The Volari had begged for peace. They had wanted words, not war. Yet these humans, they fought like demons unleashed, every soldier a storm unto themselves. They cannot win, one Volariade muttered, eyes wide. The swarm is endless. Endless. But as the hours dragged into dawn, something became clear. The swarm bled. For every 100 that fell upon the walls, 50 were burned, torn, or blasted apart. The humans were not faltering. They were learning, adjusting firing lines, coordinating artillery, striking weaknesses. By sunrise, the bodies of swarm creatures carpeted the plains. The humans stood among the corpses, weapons smoking, armor scarred but unbroken. Colonel Hastings removed his helmet, face grim but steady. He looked not at the aliens, but at the horizon. They'll be back, he said. And next time, it'll be worse. The Volari had sent a cry for peace. What they had received was something else entirely. Not diplomats. Not mediators. But warriors from a death world, a species that did not negotiate with nightmares. And for the first time since their galaxy began to burn, the Volari realized a terrible, awe-inspiring truth. If anyone could stand against the endless swarm, it was humanity. The plain outside Rethuan 4 reeked of smoke and charred alien flesh. The ground, once cracked desert, was now blackened mud mixed with blood that sizzled like acid. Volari survivors stood behind their windows, too afraid to step outside. The humans were still there, still standing, armored giants among the ruin. Colonel Mark Hastings moved slowly through the battlefield, boots crunching on chitin corpses. He had fought wars before on Mars, on Europa, in the asteroid sieges, but never against anything like this. The swarm was not an army. It was a hunger-given form. Behind him, Captain Sarah Mitchell jogged to catch up, helmet tucked under her arm. Her short auburn hair clung to her forehead with sweat, her eyes as sharp as razors. They'll regroup, sir. You saw how they pulled back, testing our lines. Next time it won't just be a frontal charge. I know, Hastings said grimly. That was their probe. She glanced at the horizon, where the corpses ended and the empty plains began. You think they'll hit orbital next? The colonel didn't answer. He didn't have to. They both knew. Inside the Volari governor's hall, tension festered like rot. The alien leaders bickered, voices shrill. We cannot withstand another assault, one cried. They will overwhelm us, this planet is lost. Perhaps we should send another SOS, to the Ketheri, to anyone else. Governor Talon Vor slammed a claw against the table. Enough. We already begged the galaxy. None answered. Only, them. His words carried both dread and reluctant gratitude. All eyes shifted toward the lone human officer seated at the table, Captain Mitchell, who listened with cold patience. Finally, Talon asked the question gnawing at them all. Why are you here? Why fight for us? Surely your species has nothing to gain. Mitchell's expression didn't soften. You sent an SOS. We heard it. That's enough. The Volari looked baffled. One whispered, no empire does this, not without tribute, not without treaties. The captain leaned forward, her voice low, steady. We're not an empire. That night, human engineers and marines worked side by side, stringing up heavier fortifications. They unloaded railgun platforms from their dropships, drove them into the soil, and began calibrating firing arcs. Drones scouted the skies, their cameras whirring. Mines were planted along the plains, their red sensors winking like eyes in the dark. Private Daniel Brooks, arm still in a sling, helped string power cables with his good hand. He winced but kept going, jaw tight. Sergeant Ramirez barked at him, "You break that arm worse, kid, Hastings'll have my ass." Brooks grinned weakly. "Better yours than mine, Sarge." The humans laughed, brief and bitter, but it kept the fear away. From the shadows, Volari civilians watched in awe. They had never seen such relentless preparation. Humans fought as if every moment mattered, as if each second wasted meant another grave. And when dawn came, the humans were ready. The second attack began with fire from the skies. Volari screamed as living meteors hurtled down, bursting open to spill winged horrors onto the colony walls. But this time, railguns roared to life, shredding the beasts mid-descent, painting the sky with burning gore. Colonel Hastings stood in the command bunker, barking orders into calms. "Mitchell, east wall's yours. Ramirez, get that railgun online now. Brooks, stay the hell behind cover." Captain Mitchell and her squad sprinted through corridors of fire, shotguns blazing at close range. She slammed a grenade into the mouth of a snarling beast and kicked it back over the wall before it exploded. "Hold your sectors. Don't let them breach," she shouted, voice carrying like thunder. Still, the swarm adapted. Burrowing creatures tunneled beneath the barricades, erupting in showers of dirt and stone. Marines fell back, opening fields of fire as autocannons chewed through chitin and bone. One monster broke through, massive as a tank, its claws dripping acid. It barreled toward a group of terrified Volari civilians. And then Colonel Hastings himself stepped into its path. He leveled his shoulder-mounted launcher, fired, and reduced the beast to ash in a bloom of flame. His expression didn't change. He didn't even glance at the civilians. "Get back inside," he ordered. They obeyed. Hours passed. The battlefield was chaos made flesh. Volari sobbed and prayed in their shelters while the humans bled for them on the walls. Private Brooks ducked as a swarm of spine darts ripped overhead, plaster chipping off the barricade. "Jesus Christ," he shouted. "Keep your head down, rookie." Ramirez yelled, shoving him flat before firing 3 rounds into the leaping creature above. Blood soaked the dirt. Screams echoed through the smoke. But the line did not break. And then, as suddenly as it began, the swarm pulled back. The silence was worse than the battle. Smoke curled into the pale sky. Corpses littered the ground, stacked high against the barricades. Marines slumped where they stood, exhausted but alive. Captain Mitchell limped back to the command post, helmet cracked, blood streaking her cheek. She dropped heavily into a chair across from Hastings. "They're learning," she said hoarsely. "They're probing for weaknesses. Each wave is smarter than the last." Hastings nodded slowly, eyes hard. "Yeah. They're not just animals. They're a strategy." The Volari governor approached, his frills trembling, his voice small. How long can you hold them?" The colonel met his gaze. His words were blunt, unflinching. "As long as we have to." That night, the Volari city was quiet except for the human camps. Fires burned. Soldiers patched armor, reloaded ammo, and buried their dead. Mitchell sat beside the graves, silent, her rifle across her lap. Brooks approached hesitantly. "Captain?" She glanced up. His face was pale, eyes red from smoke and fear. "I don't get it," Brooks said softly. "Why us? Why humanity? We're just one species. Why do we always have to be the ones standing on the line?" For the first time, Mitchell's expression softened. "Because somebody has to." She looked back at the graves, her jaw tight. "And we're too damn stubborn to quit." High above, hidden in the black void of space, swarm command vessels churned with alien thought. The second wave had failed. But the hive learned, always learned. The next assault would not be a mere test. It would be annihilation. And deep below, on the scarred world of Rethuan 4, the humans sharpened their blades, loaded their rifles, and prepared to stare into the abyss again. The Volari had asked for peace. What they got was war. And war was humanity's home. The horizon boiled with shadows. Every Volari on Rethuan 4 felt it in their bones before the sensors confirmed it. The swarm had returned, greater, heavier, hungrier. Their ships blotted out the stars, their thunder shook the ground. The third wave was no raid. It was extermination. In the command bunker, Colonel Mark Hastings stood before the holographic display. Hundreds of red markers swarmed across the map, a tide that dwarfed anything they had faced before. His jaw tightened. "This is it," he said quietly. "They're throwing everything at us." Captain Sarah Mitchell adjusted the strap on her battered rifle, her cheek still scarred from the last fight. She didn't flinch at the sight of the impossible numbers. She only muttered, "Good. Saves us the trouble of hunting them later." Private Daniel Brooks swallowed hard, staring at the swarm of red. "Sir, we can't hold against that." Hastings turned to him, voice calm but hard as iron. "Then we'll hold anyway." Above, the USSC Valiant fired its engines to life, orbiting low. Its rail cannons charged, glowing white-hot, ready to scorch the plains. Human engineers had linked its targeting with the colony's artillery, creating a killzone grid across the land. If the swarm wanted to come, they would choke on fire and lead. But still, Hastings knew the truth: this wasn't about winning. This was about buying time. The attack began at dawn. The ground itself trembled as colossal burrowers erupted beneath the colony walls, their armored hides shrugging off gunfire. Winged monstrosities blackened the skies, diving with shrieks that shattered glass. Behind them came the endless tide: claws, fangs, mandibles, rivers of flesh and rage. "Hold the line!" Mitchell roared into comms as her squad opened fire. Railguns spat molten rounds, tearing beasts apart mid-charge. Mines detonated, hurling chitin and blood into the air. The Valiant unleashed a storm of orbital fire, pillars of white light scarring the earth. Still they came. Private Brooks fought with teeth clenched, rifle jerking against his shoulder as he fired non-stop. He had stopped feeling fear, it was drowned out by fury. A beast lunged at him, claws raised, and he screamed as he emptied his entire magazine into its face. Sergeant Ramirez yanked him back. "Reload, rookie. Don't waste the next shot." "Got it." Brooks jammed another mag in, hands shaking. He wasn't a rookie anymore. None of them were. At the eastern wall, Captain Mitchell led from the front. She vaulted barricades, barking orders, firing with perfect precision. When a beast the size of a dropship smashed through the wall, she didn't hesitate. She grabbed an anti-tank launcher, braced it on her shoulder, and fired. The explosion lit the sky, tearing the creature apart in a spray of fire. Her Marines cheered, but the cheer died as a second beast charged through the smoke. And then a third. "Fall back to the inner barricade," Mitchell ordered, voice raw. "Make them bleed for every inch." In the bunker, Hastings received reports from all sides. The swarm was pressing, harder and smarter than before. He could hear the panic in the Volari governor's voice as the alien transmitted from the shelter. "Colonel, they are breaching. You cannot stop them. Evacuate your soldiers, save yourselves." Hastings didn't look up from the tactical display. His voice was quiet, cold. "Governor, if we run, they'll chase. If we stay, they'll break. But if we fight here, maybe the rest of your people out there get a chance." The Volari fell silent. Hours dragged into eternity. The battlefield was hell. Smoke blackened the sky, flames turned night to day. Corpses of men, women, and monsters alike stacked into mountains. The air stank of burning metal and alien ichor. Private Brooks fought until his rifle clicked empty, then drew his sidearm, firing into the snarling jaws of a beast that nearly crushed him. Ramirez saved him again, dragging him back with a snarl. "Don't you dare quit on me, kid." Mitchell bled from a dozen wounds, her armor cracked, yet she refused to fall. She planted her boots in the mud, shotgun bucking in her hands, screaming into the comms. "Stand your ground. This is where we make them pay." And still, the swarm pressed closer. In the command center, Hastings stared at the last fallback line, the colony's heart. Civilians huddled there, their wide eyes reflecting fire. He knew the truth. They wouldn't hold another hour. Unless. He toggled his calm, voice steady. Valiant. This is Hastings. Prepare the Nova strike. The comm officer on the Valiant hesitated. Sir, that's a last resort weapon. Blast radius will take out half the colony. I know, Hastings said quietly. His gaze swept over the battlefield one last time. His men. The civilians. The swarm. But if we don't, there won't be a colony. Mitchell stormed into the bunker, covered in ash and blood. You're calling the Nova? She demanded. Hastings nodded. It's the only way. She stared at him, breathing hard. Then she set her jaw and saluted. Then we hold the line until it hits. The colonel returned the salute, steel-gray eyes unwavering. Until it hits. They fought like demons. Mitchell's squad made their last stand at the eastern barricade, buying seconds with blood. Ramirez and Brooks held the southern choke, mowing down beast after beast, never yielding. Hastings himself joined the western wall, rifle blazing, grenades lighting the sky. The swarm surged like a tidal wave, crushing the walls, flooding into the colony. Humans fought them hand to hand, knives flashing, fists swinging. Every soldier knew the truth: there was no retreat, no tomorrow. Only this moment. And overhead, the Valiant unleashed hell. A white sun was born in the sky as the Nova strike fell, an orbital lance of annihilation. The ground split, fire erupted, shockwaves flattened the plains. The swarm screamed as thousands of their kind burned to ash in an instant. The colony shook to its core. Buildings crumbled. Dust filled the air. When the light faded, silence followed. The battlefield was gone. Where once the swarm had advanced, there was only a scorched wasteland, littered with shadows burned into the ground. The monsters were gone. The line had held. Barely. Hastings stood in the rubble, helmet gone, face blackened with soot. Around him, the surviving Marines dragged each other from the ruins. Mitchell limped forward, her arm hanging limp, but she still stood. Ramirez carried Brooks, who coughed blood but grinned weakly. They had survived. Against everything, they had survived. Governor Vore emerged from the shelter, his frills trembling as he looked upon the human warriors who had bled for his people. He dropped to one knee, lowering his gaze. You did what no one believed possible. You stopped them. Hastings didn't answer. He stared at the horizon, at the rising sun over a land of ash. His voice was low, heavy. We stopped them today. Mitchell stepped beside him, her voice cold but resolute. And tomorrow, if they come again, we'll be here. The Volari governor shuddered. For the first time, he understood the truth of the Deathworlders. They did not fight because it was glorious. They did not fight for conquest or power. They fought because no one else could. And sometimes, that was enough. The galaxy would remember Rethuan 4. Not as the place the Volari Dominion was saved, but as the day the galaxy learned what it meant to call for help from Earth. For when humanity answered a cry in the dark, they did not send diplomats. They sent warriors.